Hello again. On the pulse this afternoon, I sit down with Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, the man who helped shape Ghana's education landscape for nearly a decade, first as Deputy Minister between 2017 to 2021, and later as Substantive Minister from 2021 to 2025 under the Akufo-Addo administration. During his time in office, he played a central role in expanding the free senior high school policy, a flagship program that significantly increased access to secondary education nationwide. His tenure also saw a strong push towards STEM education and the distribution of learning resources aimed at improving outcomes and aligning Ghana's system with global standards. But his record has not been without debate. Questions around quality, sustainability, and learning outcomes have persisted even as enrollment surged and reforms took shape. Still serving as Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe in the Ashanti region and coming off a modest showing in the MPP presidential primaries in January, Dr. Educhum joins me in the studio for a conversation this afternoon. We assess his legacy. Did his reforms truly transform Ghana's education sector or merely expand access at the expense of quality? And perhaps more importantly, how has the sector performed since his departure in 2025? Thank you very much for your time this afternoon, Dr. Osei Educhum.
Thank you for bringing me to your studios.
Right. Since the conclusion of the MPP presidential primaries in January 2026, we barely see you in the public eye. Where have you been?
I was waiting for your call, and the call came in 3 days ago, and I'm here. And I've been great.
Okay.
I feel great. I feel good. I'm working for the people of Bosomtwe, and I have all the time to serve them better.
Why did you enter that race?
I have some set of ideas that I thought would benefit my party, would benefit Ghana, and I was prepared to step up, share my ideas with Ghana, make sure we can. I was not going to talk about poverty alleviation, but we can eradicate poverty from the face of this country. So I have a set of ideas that guided and motivated me to step in. And the delegates told me they were not ready yet. And they thought there was somebody who could lead us better. And I wholeheartedly support their position. It's a process. And the process has begun. So I'm happy that the whole system selected my brother, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia, to lead us.
Right.
And I wholeheartedly support him.
You had barely 1% of the total votes. Were you surprised?
After above 1%, but the point
1.04%.
The point of the matter, this is my first time. I have to step up and sell myself, so it's good. My name is out there, and people have gotten to know me.
Does that mean that you went in not to win it, but to market yourself?
No, who goes into an election not to win? You go in to win, but whatever the delegates tell you, that's what you abide by.
Are you sure that everybody goes into elections to win?
If you don't want to win, why did you go in?
Because
I went in to win.
Sold yourself.
Yeah, I went in to win. I didn't win, but I've sold myself.
Were you surprised at the results?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's what the delegates say, and that's what the delegates have said. So, no surprises.
Right. You just mentioned that you've marketed yourself, which is indeed accurate. Some are also saying that you went into this particular race with a strategy. Your strategy was first to market yourself, which you have confessed to, and second, to project yourself as a potential vice presidential candidate to the eventual winner. Is that something that is part of the reasons why
Vice President, you are not elected by anybody. So why would you want
potential vice presidential candidate?
But you don't have to market yourself. Once upon a time, I was a potential vice president candidate. As a former minister for education, I have all the qualifications for anybody who wants to consider me. I don't have to join the race to make that point. I've been in government. I've served Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, and I've served this government, my government, very well. My record is there. I don't need to go into a race to market myself as a potential running mate. No, that one is your record and likability if the person likes you. So you don't have to enter a race to sell yourself. But
Dr. Educhum, politics, as we all know, is numbers. It's a numbers game. If an eventual flag bearer is selected, he will or she will try to select a running mate that will complement he or she, so that the running mate can at least canvass some votes for him or her as well. So if you say that you marketed yourself, you didn't need to go into this election to...
not for running mate slots, no, of course not. You don't go into for running mate slots, no. It is at the discretion of the eventual winner. You can be the best candidate in the world. If the person doesn't like you, he doesn't like you. So what's the point? So you don't go into, I don't understand why you enter a race so that somebody will pick you. No, the person must like you. There are so many things that factors into this, and I wouldn't go into any race so that somebody will pick me, no.
276 constituencies were you able to go to?
I couldn't go to every one of them. I went to as many as I could.
How many?
I think we went to about over half around the country. I mean,
your first bid to be president, how was the experience? Difficult?
No, it's you go in front of people and you sell your vision to them, and you know what you are saying to them resonates, and they will come to you and say, we wish you had come earlier. You know, I mean, that's the nature of the game. People have their, what they have decided to do before it even showed up there. But you see, at the end of the day, I'm a son of a cocoa farmer. Grew up in a very deprived community. And when I stand before Ghanaians saying I want to be president, something tells me, in this country called Ghana, everything is possible. I want my story to be an inspiration to the youth who may be coming from other communities, just like where I grew up, for them to know that they too can one day aspire to be the president of this country. That, to me, what the takeaway for the youth is what made me excited when I was in communities, when I was in villages, when I was in deprived communities, and I'm able to share my story with them and inspire some of them. There were people who cried as I told my story and why I wanted to be president. So to me, that was a very good experience, and it's to inspire. And also get the opportunity to serve. I mean, I went to Agotimi Ziope in the Volta region. When I look at the community there, I saw a community just like Bosomtwe, where I serve. And I made a promise to the delegates that I will sponsor one student from that constituency to pursue engineering. After the election, even though I didn't win, what did I do? I fulfilled my promise. I taken a student from Agotimi Ziope to UMAT. She's pursuing chemical engineering, a young lady who has been home since 2019, 7 years after graduating from high school with excellent score in science. This young woman was sitting at home. If I had not entered the race, the light would not be at UMAT as I speak with you, with everything paid for, everything, accommodation, fees, food. Yesterday he called me and said, "Hey, Daddy, my rice, I've run out of rice. Can I get some food?"
Right.
See? So at the end of the day, if it is just for delight, to be able to become an engineer 4 years from now, it was worth the effort that I put in. So along the line, somebody's lives have been positively impacted. And to me, it's worth every effort that that young woman will be a chemical engineer 4 years from now. And that, to me, if for nothing, Delight's future, after 7 years of sitting at home, working on the farm, it's not going to be different. So to me, everything that I do, I believe in divine providence. I believe in making impact in the lives of others. If my story made somebody believe in themselves, made a grandma believe that her grandchildren will one day succeed and become like Dr. Edichum, it was worth getting into the race. So these are the things that I see, the things that makes me happy that I was in. Now I'm out and I'm looking at what I can do, not just for my constituency, but for Ghana.
Right. Anytime I've listened to you, you show that education is so dear to your heart. And in fact, it was indeed front and center of your campaign. What makes you think that did not convince the delegates enough that your policy of mainly education didn't resonate with them? Why did
you see, the thing is, I think you have to really look at when it comes to primary election. It's not about you and your policy. It's about what they think should happen for their party.
Right.
If the delegates believe that one person has been the candidate the last election, 2024, and if we're looking for another person, that person should be repeated. It really doesn't. It has nothing to do with your vision and whatever you want to do. The people believe that here is the person that we believe should go. When that is the position of the delegates, it's not about me. They are not voting against me. They are voting for somebody. But the impact of the vote for somebody has an implications for me. So if you don't understand it well, you take it as if you step up there and they voted against you. No, they didn't vote against me, but they voted for somebody that they think will be a better candidate for the party. And I happen to support them because that is the consensus reached by the delegates that will follow this person.
After the primaries, do you think your party can unite towards potential victory in 2028?
I believe so.
Looking at the internal wranglings that went on during the primaries.
I mean, every election has those internal wranglings, but when you settle down and you sit there and think about your country and think about your party, then you begin to realize that once the delegates have made their point and have indicated to all of us that this is the direction they want, we have to wholeheartedly embrace the winner and support him to win.
Right. Would you love to be the running mate to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia?
That is not my decision. And even though your show is one of the best in the country, I don't want to sit on your show and make any comment about it because it's not within my space and my right.
If he calls you today that I want you to be my running mate?
When that day comes, I'll call you and tell you that he has called me. But for now, I have no comment on it.
So you're not thinking about it at all?
I have no comment.
Your former boss, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, he was the flag bearer, the flag bearer's running mate in the last elections. There are rumors going around that there's bad blood between the two of you.
I'm glad you said rumors because you don't have the facts. Treat it as rumors and that'll be fine. You said it's rumors. Make it rumors.
But that's why I want to ask you. I have you here, so
I don't have anything against him, and I don't think he has anything against me. So,
where was the last time you heard from him?
Heard from him? We are party people. We meet at events all the time.
Right. Let's talk about education because that is your forte. You have seen it all when it comes to the education sector. As I mentioned in my intro, you were deputy minister in the first Akufo-Addo administration. In the second administration, you were made substantive minister in charge of education. First of all, why do you think the president trusted you so much to elevate you from a deputy minister to substantive minister? Because if you look at the first set of deputy ministers within the first administration, some continued to be deputy ministers in the second administration in different sectors, but you stayed within the education sector, elevated to substantive minister. Why do you think President Akufo-Addo trusted you so much and put you in charge of the whole country's education sector?
You see, Nana Addo is somebody that I really appreciate and respect a lot. And he's somebody who believes in meritocracy because he found me in America. And I can say that he's the principal reason that I came back to Ghana. He came on a tour of America, came to Los Angeles, saw my schools there, charter schools I had built there, and he couldn't believe that Ghanaian would be building schools for Americans. And he asked me right there, he said, would you consider coming back to Ghana to help me change the education system? These were his words. I reflected on it. But I was saying to myself, given where I've come from, these are the pictures of the students, the schools. I just came back from there. And given my background and where I had been and where I had come from and where I was saying to myself, do I really need to stop this and go to Ghana and operate in the political space? I reflected and then met a mentor of mine who I had known for a long time, also a politician in the U.S. political system, and asked him, do I go back or do I stay here? And he told me, Yao, you've done well, you've done so much for America, but I'll tell you one thing, America can do without you. Maybe your country cannot do without you. So I advise you to go. It touched my heart when he said that. I decided that I will come back to Ghana and heed the call of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who was not a president then. So I was taking, believing that he would win. And then I came, ran for Member of Parliament, Bosomtwe. They voted for me, and then became Deputy Minister whilst we came to Parliament. And I supported the vision of the President, free secondary education, doing the communication, supporting the minister at the time so that we can forge ahead and do what people thought was impossible in the Ghanaian education space. And then at the end of the first term, the President called me and said, I know why I brought you. I'm going to elevate you to become the Minister for Education. And I ask you to come and change the education system. Free senior high school, just a small bit of it. What are the other things that you can do? So I'll put on the table STEM education, Mr. President. I said, go ahead, pursue it. Whatever resources you need, I'm ready to support you. And we're able to do what people thought was nearly impossible. Because you see, in this country, we've heard about STEM education, various presidents will read about it in their speeches. Then we gave true meaning to what had been a cliche for a long time and began building STEM schools, STEM junior high schools. If you look at some of them, you won't believe that the schools are in Ghana. Accra here, Accra STEM Academy, a school that begins from kindergarten all the way to high school, built within 2 years, operationalized. And then you begin to see that change was possible. Mo Ibrahim Foundation comes to Ghana, other African countries look at education, move us from number 17 to number 2 in Africa, especially because of the STEM education that we had so well prosecuted. And not just that. You see, WAEC, we always talk about you poor person forget, right? As something that the Ghanaian education system is well known for, that you just memorize the thing in your head. And I knew, and the president knew, that we had to move from there to critical thinking type of education. So I had a meeting with WAEC and I said, this era should be over. Chiu-Poor should be a thing of the past. And they said, how? So, okay, we are reforming our high school curriculum. And we're able to get MasterCard Foundation to bring in money. Now they spend close to about $80 million. After we left, they spent more to reform the high school curriculum. And there's something called the West Depth of Knowledge, DOKs, that says that you just don't teach to understand and the why and when and all those things, but move on to a point where the students are critically applying and critically thinking. We're able to do that, started the modern high school curriculum. Pilot was done this year. 33 schools in high schools in Ghana are going to be examined on a new curriculum that is just like the IB curriculum, just like the Cambridge curriculum, just like any US curriculum based on critical thinking. A number of schools, including my school, Bosomtwe Girls. These students are going to be examined on a curriculum that this country has never used before. And thanks to MasterCard Foundation, the teachers have been trained, the materials have been developed, and now, in fact, this week, upcoming week, they're doing, UCC is doing a mock for all those 33 schools, and they are going to be tested on something that is close to what you find in Singapore, what you find in Japan, what you find in America. And that curriculum is now being implemented. So when I look back on the work that we did at the ministry, it was not just about access, allow more students to go, but it's also about quality of the education system, building about 300 science labs. The kind of science labs you have in schools in Ghana now, it will be difficult for you to find it in some schools in the US. Top of the line science lab.
You don't say. Whether
it's chemistry, oh yes. And that's why I do evidence-based communication.
Okay.
I want them to show it on the screen. So if you go to schools like Ebru Girls, we built some there. A number of schools, including Aflao Community Day School. We built biology, chemistry, physics. That was the first community school that got that kind of science lab. Wesley Girls. we had them. These are the Accra STEM Academy, the school, but the science lab themselves. And then now high schools in Ghana are doing engineering. Go to Presec, they're doing engineering there. And engineering also meant that they needed engineering labs. And MasterCard Foundation provided funding for all those schools that were doing engineering, so that, and those who were doing robotics, they buy them the equipment and the tools. And you see, if you look at a school like Bosomtwe Girls, it happens to be my constituency, but we also have Bomosu STEM Academy, Kwasi STEM Academy, a number of them. And if you look at the fact that these schools are doing robotics, and in 5 years after being established, Bosomtwe Girls is going to represent Ghana in Michigan. They beat all the other schools in Ghana to win the RoboFest competition in Ghana. And they are going. How did they do it? Because we provided the equipment and the tools and the facilities in the school, and then paired them with Wesley Girls. We affiliated them with Wesley Girls. Brought in Mrs. Jokoto, a former Wesley Girls headmistress, to be the mentor of the headmistress, the teachers, and the students. Wesley Girls, old girls from KNUSC, go to Bosomtwe Girls to guide them, to mentor them. We send some students to go and stay at Wesley Girls in Cape Coast to see firsthand how things go. So these are called evidence-based communication. These are high school buildings. And this is what we wanted to do and began. And then move on to junior high school. That's the part that excites me, that you can really put junior high schools on the path to true high school. Because you say a place is called junior high, but the facilities they have are primary school facilities. And if you don't change it, it becomes the weakest link in your education system, which is the junior high school, because the facilities they have nothing high school about it. So what did we have to look at this school? This is a school in Accra.
What school is that?
St. Barnabas.
Okay.
Osu. This was what it used to be. I went to visit the school. I just passing by decided to go there and saw the school, and I couldn't believe that this is a junior high school in the nation's capital, Osu. I took a team of architects there, engineers there, and I said, how do we gut this building, retrofit it, and make it a building that is fit for 21st century education? Within 6 months, the place had totally changed. And if you look at Osu, St. Barnabas now, and look at the uniform of the students, the mindset change. They're going on field trips now. Right. And you begin to see that change has really come, and change can come. So, my brother, at the end of the day, I think if we look at the Ghanaian education space, a number of innovations that were introduced, some are continuing, some I don't know how it's going to be done. Like the National Education Leadership Institute. Right. If you build schools and you don't train the administrators of the schools, you are not going to get the impact that you want. It will not come. In education, you have to do many things at the same time for you to get the results. So we established the National Education Leadership Institute, NELI, with funding from Big Win Philanthropies, a different organization. So during my time as a minister, I used my international connections to really sort for funding. There are some that will approach it, there are some that I will approach and say, hey, we're doing this. It's a great innovation. The government doesn't have the resources. Can you help us? And they will come and help. So if you look at, now I was talking to WAEC head this afternoon, and she was telling me that the West African countries are now coming to Ghana to understudy and find out from WAEC how they change the high school curriculum and how they can also do same in Sierra Leone, in Gambia, in Liberia, in Nigeria. So Ghana has become a pace setter. Right. About one area where we did the last exams in 2024, it's called the National Standardized Test. You see, the thing is this, as a country, we're not doing our assessment until the students get to junior high school, and then we have a national assessment. This is the Aflao science lab. So primary 4, you don't know how the students are doing. Primary 6, you don't know. The first time you knew anything was after junior high school. That was 11 years after education. So literally, you don't have opportunity to do any major intervention for those students who are struggling. So the national standardized test was given birth to rectify that. So primary 2 students are assessed, primary 4 students are assessed, primary 6 students are assessed, and then use the results to provide intervention. And the one interesting thing is that, as I speak with you, if you read any World Bank report on Ghana, it will say that Ghana has poor learning outcomes. That's what they will say.
Is that not your legacy?
It's not true. I had to challenge them.
Whose legacy is that?
No, it's nobody's legacy. What they are telling us is not accurate, but we have accepted it.
How is it not accurate?
No, I had to confront the World Bank.
Err?
Where they erred was this. They are not using any national data for that report that they create. They are not using it. There's a test called TEMS, which was administered in 2011. And when they administered a test in 2011, Ghana didn't do well. We did not even continue with that assessment. And World Bank continued to use that as the basis for defining Ghana as a country with poor learning outcomes. So when I confronted them in Washington, D.C., I told them all the things that we're doing in Ghana, especially supported by them and their resource, targeted instruction, and the thing that we're doing in Ghana, they couldn't classify Ghana as a country with poor learning outcomes. So what did they do? They followed up with a visit to Ghana. We had a big meeting at the Ministry of Education. Then they decided, okay, if that is the case, we'll bring in psychometricians, statisticians from Australia. So they brought in 2 Australians to come and help us. So what did they do? Using the national standardized test, they help us develop the questions. We administered the exam. Now the results, if you look at what is going on, they were able to see that Ghanaian students are doing well. And therefore, we shouldn't be classified as that country with poor learning outcome.
Right.
So we reported, the data has now been reported to the UNESCO Institute of Statistics. And based on that, once they incorporate that, then Ghana will no longer be referred to as a nation with poor learning outcomes. So you see, sometimes, with my international experience, I knew they were not telling the truth. However, they were using data which was available to them from 2011. And that data could not represent Ghana's education now.
Right.
And I had to challenge them for it to be rectified. And I'm sure the current minister will do a follow-up on it so that Ghana will no longer be classified as that nation with poor learning outcomes.
We'll delve deeper into your legacy at the Education Ministry. These are some of your successes, but others argue that there were excesses as well that happened during your tenure. But I want to take you back to Parliament. Just last week, the Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Thomas Ampim, appeared before the House with what he said was an Auditor General's report. And I'm quoting him verbatim. He said, Mr. Speaker, an amount of 6.1 million Ghana cedis appeared on the Ministry of Education's 6.1 million Ghana cedis appeared on the Ministry of Education's bank transfer advisor's schedule at the Controller and Accountant General's Department, even though the same funds had already been paid by a donor partner. Such entities opened a door for double payment and exposed a dangerous pattern of weak oversight and porous coordination between donor and government financial records. This is what the Deputy Minister came to say in Parliament. Essentially, what he's saying is that there were funds that were demanded from government to be paid. And when those funds were approved and were due for payment, they noticed that those funds had already been paid. So the question then is, why was there a demand in the first place? You were the sector minister. I want to believe you are well abreast with this issue that I'm talking about. What happened?
You see, let me give you an example of what they were talking about regarding GTech. And said 160 million, close to 160 million, was prevented from being paid again. You see, the interesting thing about the GTech issue, for example, was that that amount appeared in our handover notes. captured by the transition committee. But in January, the new government pays that money to the teacher trainees. So instead of taking credit for a good job done, they are making it appear as if somebody was requesting for it again. I just met with GTech today, and they said they were surprised, and nobody consulted them to even confirm. The Ministry of Finance had an obligation to pay, and the new government in January made the payment to GTech. GTech then goes on to disburse the money to the teacher trainees.
So where did the new request come from?
There was no new request. You see, the thing is this. If I'm the auditor, right, and you handed me documents after January to take a look at, I don't know when. So far as I'm concerned, the transition committee had indicated that amount. But the Minister of Finance had not revised the arrears list to show that we've already paid this. So the auditors probably are looking at it and say, oh, they are demanding payment. But the Minister of Finance had already paid it in January.
So whose fault is it?
The Minister of Finance, obviously.
This Ministry of Finance?
Of course, this Minister of Finance, because they are the people who paid. You have an arrears stated because of, I'm sure, the sensitive nature of payment to teacher trainees. According to GTech, they received the money in January. But in December, when we were leaving, it was outstanding. But in January, according to GTech, they received the funds. So if you already paid them and you don't probably inform, I don't know if that is their process, but if the audit committee is not informed that these were the arrears, but between December and now, we've paid this. So in their view, somebody is demanding payment, but GTech is saying they received the payment in January.
Right.
So if you look at all these things, my brother, the most important thing is that I've been a minister, I've run organizations. Whenever there's an audit, there's a management report that is demanded. So something this much, you want GTech to respond in writing that we found this, respond to us in writing. Why this is there. GTech was never asked to respond. Then you go out in Parliament to make a statement that harms somebody's reputation. Why was GTech not asked to respond in writing to something as substantial as close to 160 million? All that GTech had was when I saw it on Ghana Web and forwarded it to them. Had it not been for that, they wouldn't even have heard that something like that has happened at their agency. So in my opinion,
yes,
whatever they want to do, it was their prerogative to do it. But they should also give people the right, the GTech the right, to respond to some things like this before it gets into the public domain for it to appear that somebody was trying to do something wrong. By the way, GTech funds are with GTech. The internal auditors, their director general, when they are dispersing their funds, they don't need the consent of any minister.
Right. You've talked about the GTech one, but I want us to clear this one as well, the one that I quoted.
I don't even know about that one, unless I get for the decide. This is the first time you're telling me.
Okay, but the latter part is also very important. It says such entries opened a door for double payment and exposed a dangerous pattern of weak oversight and a porous coordination between donor and government financial records.
What was the management response to that? There's no other report where you don't allow management to provide a response. When they found that, what was the management response? If you don't have management response, it's not an audit report. Every audit report, for fairness, when you come up with something like that, it should follow with a management response that the management said that this is what happened. Where is the management response in that if it's an audit report?
So are you saying that the Deputy Finance Minister was just playing mere propaganda?
I don't know. I can't attribute that to him. I don't know him to attribute that to him. But I'm telling you that if you have something as substantial as 160 million, there should be a management response.
Right.
If you have something like 6.1 million, the management, and when we say management, we left staff there, the civil servants are there, they should be able to respond and say that this is why you see this. All the civil servants are there, including the chief director, everybody. And by the way, when you are the minister, you don't even sign checks. So most of these activities are done by the civil servants. So like 90%, you may give approval. So the civil servants who are there, what was their response?
Dr. Duchum, let's look at WASSCE results. WASSCE results, you've touted the results of the SHS students, especially the ones who benefited from this free senior high school. Like I mentioned, it hasn't been without its challenges. Infrastructure challenges have come up, overcrowding, the quality of education have come up. But right now, I want us to focus on the cancellation of results. I want us to focus on a trend from 2021. So in 2021, 1,339 results were cancelled. In 2022, the number went up to 3,800. In 2023, it went to 3,647. In 2024, you see that it was 4,108. In 2025, that was barely few months after you had handed over.
Barely few months, no. It wasn't barely few months. They took the exams in August, September.
Right.
So, I handed over.
Right. So these kids' examinations were administered under your administration?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. Okay.
It wasn't.
Right. So 2025, we saw 6,295 of the results being cancelled. That's what is projected on the screen right now. If you look at the last results, that's the 2025 results, it's the highest we've seen in years.
So why are you asking me? I was not a minister then.
Yes, I know that. I know that you.
I was not a minister then. So if you have a question, ask the minister who was there. This is my stewardship.
Yes. Relax. We'll come there. That's your stewardship. We've seen the pattern. That 2025 it was over 6,000. Now when this one came out, there were a lot of questions.
I granted an interview here.
You did.
Oh yes.
But some people or critics were saying that this happened because if you look at the former result trends, it was because, for example, invigilation was a bit loose. So the students were getting away with murder, essentially. And now that invigilation was tightened, look at the results of that.
No, it's the reverse.
How is it?
It's the reverse. You see, if invigilation is loose, that is why, because they don't catch them red-handed. They catch them using algorithm that tells WAEC that cheating took place. It's not during the exams. It's after the exams when WAEC will call the schools after they examine the algorithm. And they're able to see that cheating was taking place.
Right, I'll come back to you shortly, but the first one that we showed were subject results being cancelled, and this trend is entire results being cancelled. If they can go back to the previous one for us to go through briefly. Yes, so this is entire results cancelled trend, and you see a bit of changes when you compare it to subject results. You see that 2021 it was a little over 170. You see 518. You see 839, and then you see 483, and then the latest one is 653. That's the entire results cancellation. So this is the highest results cancellation in about 3 years. But you were making a point. We'll come back to this again.
I was making a point that if you go on the tangent, that invigilation was strong, that is why it was cancelled, right?
So we were able to catch more students.
Okay, so our invigilation in 2023 was stronger than now. If you are making that argument.
I am not making that argument.
Yeah, so whatever the critics are saying, I'm here with you. And I'm saying if they want to go on that tangent, it means 2023 we were much more stricter. So this has nothing to do with invigilation, right? Examination, more practices, and the way we have handled it. We were the ones who told WAEC that do serialization of exams so that students can cheat. During our time, because of serialization that was introduced at my behest, BECE, there were no leakages because the exams that the children at Qatar were writing were different from what the children at Osu were writing.
This year,
so with serialization, we're able to stop it completely in BC.
Right.
Then it came to WASI. I met with the ministers for education of West Africa in Sierra Leone to talk about how do we serialize at the WASI level. Serializing at the WASI level meant that you're going to have different questions for different schools with the same level of difficulty. And if you could do that, then you are going to prevent cheating from happening, especially not just multiple choice, but essay questions. So the challenge with WAEC, which I had to ferry back to my Minister of Finance at the time, was that they need new equipment. And if they get the new equipment, literally every student may have different set of questions. So in the examination room with our 40 versions of the questions, how do you cheat? How do you get the answer from your friend?
Since the introduction of the free senior high school, we saw unprecedented results, positive results. We saw students passing en masse. Last year's results were different. A lot of students failed. A lot of students failed in subject results as well. You've been in the sector before. What do you think contributed to the mass failure that we witnessed last year?
You see, there are certain things that as a nation we have to reflect upon. And I'll tell you one thing. I think we have a very weak transition arrangement. We just write reports, hand over reports, and I have volumes and volumes and volumes of books. That forms, it will be about this high. That forms the handover notes from me to the new minister. How is he going to get the time to read through this in order to unearth some of the things that we used to do so that he would do it? Consequently, there were some best practices that had been there that were discontinued. So, for example, every year we used to have chief examiners hired by the ministry to go around and train head of departments and teachers of subject areas so that they would know areas where the school was weak in to improve upon it. That was discontinued. We also paid schools to do free extra classes for all students. It was about 165 million every year, distributed among teachers so that everybody would do free extra classes for the student. It was discontinued. And I'll tell you this, I don't want to scare parents, but if you're a parent whose child is going to write the WASI this year, take special interest. Provide all the necessary support that you can provide. Because if not, if a sense of urgency is not created between now and May, we are going to have a problem. Why? Ghana, because of the double-track calendar, could not immediately revert to testing in May and June. Consequently, we had a system where we were testing by ourselves in August and September. The government has reversed, and now they are going to May, June. As a result, what is going to happen?
Doc, I would want you to hold on briefly because, you know, in the world of news, a lot of information come up. Let's now take you to the Ghana Journalists Association, the Press Center, International Press Center. That's the GJA president who is about to address the press. Afterwards, we'll continue the conversation in the studio.
Character and strengthen our collective commitment to preserving and promoting Ghana's cultural heritage. It is important for us all to make a conscious effort to proudly wear our kente, fugu, kaba, and slit and kaftan as symbols of our rich cultural identity. So, as you can see, I am setting an example, leadership example. You see me, I'm in my fugu, and our brother, who is also Yagan. Yes, I love the colors of your fugu. Well done, and keep it up. So once again, it is important for us all to make a conscious effort to proudly wear our kente, fugu, kaba, and slit, as well as kaftan, as symbols of our rich cultural identity. Let us also celebrate our diverse cuisine by eating our traditional dishes such as tuwo safi, akpele, fufu, kenke, banku, Kokonte, etc. in Star. We want to re-echo the saying that eat Ghana, wear Ghana, drink Ghana, date Ghana, and marry Ghana during this Ghana month. As we do so, we must equally embrace and showcase our vibrant music and dance traditions to the rest of the world, proudly telling the story of who we are as people and celebrating the beauty of Ghanaian heritage. The GJA encourages all media houses across the country to use their platform to highlight and celebrate Ghanaian culture, languages, traditions, cuisines, arts, and stories of our people. The media remains one of the most powerful vehicles for shaping national identity and consciousness, and it is therefore essential that journalists and content creators play an active role in projecting the unique heritage of our country. The association particularly commends the numerous media organizations that have already dedicated programming and editorial content to promoting Ghana's cultural heritage throughout this month and beyond. As we celebrate our national heritage, the GJA also calls on journalists and media practitioners to use this period to deepen patriotic reporting that promotes national unity, responsible citizenship, and the broader national interest. GJA welcomes a decision on Lateef Idrissi case, as indicated by my General Secretary. Colleagues, the Ghana Journalists Association wants to commend the Inspector General of Police, IGP Christian Tetenyonu, and the Attorney General and Minister for Justice Dominic Ayini for their decision to pursue an out-of-court settlement in a long-standing legal case involving Lateef Idrissi of Joy News, Multimedia Group, and the Ghana Police Service. After nearly 8 years of court proceedings, the GJA considered this decision as a constructive and forward-looking step towards resolving a matter that has remained a significant concern for the media fraternity advocates and advocates of press freedom in Ghana. May I also stress the fact that we especially want to commend once again and thank the IGP for heeding to our call. This advice was given to previous heads or previous, should I say, IGPs, but they did not heed to. So we are very happy and thankful to the Inspector General of Police, Christian Tetenyonu, for heeding to this advice that sometimes it doesn't take only court to resolve matters. Rehabilitation and other alternative dispute education also helps. Once it is done well and both parties are happy, it is what it encourages and also sanitize the systems from such act. And so, IGP, we are most grateful for showing leadership and for heading to the call to ensure that we give what we call a proper rehabilitation to our affected colleague who was injured right in front of the police headquarters, CID headquarters, years back, about 8 years ago. The association believes that when concluded thoroughly and to the satisfaction of all parties involved, the settlement process will bring long-awaited closure to the case and reinforce confidence in institutional accountability and justice. The GJA's position has always been that cases involving attacks on journalists and violations of media rights must be pursued to their logical and just conclusion. However, the association also recognizes that justice can be achieved through appropriate alternative dispute resolution mechanism, as indicated earlier. It is therefore important to embrace credible solutions that promote fairness, healing, and institutional reform rather than allow cases to continue indefinitely without resolution. Healing is what we need. We need healing for our members who have been abused or attacked in the line of duty. The association particularly applauds lead counsel for Mr. Lateef Idrissi, our very own brother and a member of the Inky fraternity, Samson Ladi Ayenini, for his unwavering commitment, professionalism, and sustained dedication to defending the right and safety of journalists in Ghana. Mr. Yenini's persistence over the years has contributed significantly to keeping the issues of accountability and media protection firmly within the national discourse. Colleague, we are elated to announce that the parties are forming a team to deliberate on the terms of settlement and arrive at a consensus on what compensation is appropriate to bring the long-standing case to a closure. The GJA calls on the Attorney General and Inspector General of Police to expedite action on the settlement process to prevent further undue delays. Swift and transparent handling of the process will demonstrate good faith and strengthen public confidence in the commitment of state institutions to uphold justice and protect press freedom. And let me quickly say that I have engaged the IGP extensively on this matter and is even quite in a haste to get this issue resolved. He has said and has assured me that, Mr. President, yes, let us deliberate over this issue, but we will need representative from the GJA and to team up with our reps here, officers here, in order to find a resolution, amicable resolution to the matter. And we commend him for that. And I ask him that the rehabilitation must be something that will actually deter people and that will bring also a peaceful resolution. Now, the background of the matter. The case we are talking about in terms of the Lateef Idrisu and the IGP. The case stems from an incident in 2018 during a police operation and protest at the headquarters of the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service in Accra, where Mr. Lateef Idrisu, a journalist with Joy News, was assaulted while covering a police-related story. The incident sparked widespread condemnation from media stakeholders, civil society organizations, and press freedom advocates, leading to legal action against the Ghana Police Service. Over the years, the case has symbolized broader concerns about the safety of journalists and accountability for attacks against media practitioners in Ghana. The GJA remains hopeful that a successful resolution of this case will serve as an important precedent of dialogue, accountability, and respect for media freedom in Ghana's democratic dispensation. And to end, I will say that the case did not happen under Inspector General of Police Yewonus Tenor. Let me clarify that the case had happened 8 years ago. Yewonus was just appointed IGP last year, so the case did not happen under his tenor. But because it involved the police and the case was against the IGP, whoever is the IGP will have to pursue or will have to face that issue. And so he has decided to find a lasting resolution to the matter in a very amicable way. Thank you. Recent police invitation and interrogation of journalists. The Ghana Journalists Association, GJ, has taken note of recent development involving the invitation of some senior editors by the Ghana Police Service in February this year. And let me reiterate, by the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service in February this year. While we acknowledge the mandate of the police to investigate matters of public interest, we are compelled to express concern over a growing pattern that risks creating an atmosphere of fear within the media landscape. Quite recently, on 11 February 2026, the Police Criminal Investigation Department invited some of our colleagues following a report of alleged publication of false news made against them by the CEO of a state agency. Despite the same matter being pursued in court as a civil case. The action amounts to intimidation targeted at journalists and to the large extent editors of that matter, or in that regard. The association has also received troubling account from one of our colleagues who reported that following a police invitation on February 24, 2026, he was questioned over publications in his newspaper and asked to respond to unsubstantiated allegations including claims of extortion involving an unnamed third party. According to the journalist, despite requests for clarity and evidence, the investigators failed to provide details to substantiate these claims. He was subsequently granted bail and later subjected to further interrogation, including examination of private communications. More concerning is the claim that under an ex-party court order, the investigator proceeded to see the journalist's working tools, including a mobile phone, under unclear circumstances and without proper documentation. The journalist maintains that these actions were carried out on suspicion of an unspecified offense, raising serious concerns about due process and the protection of journalistic work in this country. One of our colleagues, who was also invited or among the invitees, also informed us that during interrogation over the alleged false publication, he was at one point asked to disclose its source, a request he firmly resisted. Journalists are not bound to disclose our source, except the court or the laws of this country compel us to do so. It's only the court that can compel a journalist to disclose his sources. Apart from that, apart from the rule of law that will compel journalists to do so, journalists are not, we are not under any compulsion, to disclose our source. And so he resisted. This is why the GJA, alongside other media stakeholders, has consistently called for the repeal of what we describe as repressive sections of the Electronic Communications Act, 2008, Act 775, and the Criminal and Other Offences Act. These laws are often weaponized to arrest, intimidate, and muzzle journalists, thereby creating a climate of fear. The GJA encourages aggrieved individuals and institutions to make use of all the well-established mechanisms of the National Media Commission, NMC, as it remains the constitutional mandated body to regulate and arbitrate media-related disputes. So let's make good use of the NMC. If you don't have confidence or you don't believe in the NMC, if you feel defamed and still do not believe in the NMC, seek redress in the court of law. Court of law is there. There are several remedies. We have always said that we have condemned criminalization of free speech and what? And defamation. Defamation must be treated as civil and not criminal. It is the reason the Criminal Libel Act or law was repealed over 20 years ago by the then President John Ajay Kufuor. Today, we have passed through the window. We have had the cause to challenge the Electronic Communications Act. Because when you read the act, it is not meant for the media. So that is why when the police goes to court, they are not able to quote, or they only quote the act that actually favors them, the sections. But when we read the act, the Electronic Communications Act 2008, Act 775, it is not and wasn't meant for the media journalists. Yet, what are we seeing? People hide behind the security services under the pretext of fighting false publications to intimidate and harass journalists in this country. We want to serve this warning, or let me say a notice, to every public service holder that if you don't want to be exposed, do your work well. Serve the nation diligently with truth and honesty. If you don't want to be criticized, stay away from public service.
Right, so you just listened to Albert Jumfor, who is the GJA president from the Accra Press Center. And let's come back into the studio and wrap up briefly with Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. We have about a minute before we cross over to the Bank of Ghana. Your departing words.
For bringing me here. Obviously, I need to come back.
Right, we've had a lot of behind-the-scenes discussions that we put in.
I have to come back. So I want to thank you for bringing me up, and I want to thank the audience for watching us, and just move on.
Right. Right, thank you very much. Dr. Yao Osei Educhum is a former education minister. He's also the Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe constituency in the Ashanti region there. This has been The Pulse. We are crossing over to the Bank of Ghana, where the bank is about to announce a new monetary policy rate.
Growth was resilient, supported by accommodative monetary policy stance in advanced economies, stronger consumer and business confidence, and increased investment spending, especially by technology firms. However, the global environment has since changed drastically, largely due to the Middle East conflict. The conflict has disrupted global supply chains, increased crude oil market volatility, it has raised financial stability concerns, and heightened global uncertainty. Although global headline inflation has been on a downward trajectory, the recent surge in oil prices has renewed inflation concerns and may compel some central banks to reassess their monetary policy stance. Consequently, global financing conditions, which remain broadly accommodative, could tighten in the near term. Depending on the intensity and duration of the conflict, these developments could weigh on the global economic outlook. Now, on the domestic front, provisional data released by the Ghana Statistical Service indicated that real GDP grew by 6% in 2025, compared with 5.8% in 2024. Non-oil GDP growth accelerated to 7.6% from 6.1% over the same period, largely driven by the services and agriculture sectors. The Bank of Ghana's high-frequency real sector indicators pointed to a sustained pickup in economic activity. The real composite index of economic activity recorded an annual growth of 8.4% in January 2026, compared to 6% for the corresponding period of 2025. Increased credit to the private sector by banks, industrial production, international trade activities, and consumption of goods and services by households and firms contributed to the improvement in economic activity. The bank's confidence surveys conducted in February 2026 reflected positive consumer and business sentiments. Consumer confidence improved on account of easing inflationary pressures and optimism about future economic conditions. Similarly, business confidence strengthened on the back of realization of operational targets and optimism about industry prospects amid improving macroeconomic conditions. Headline inflation declined further to 3.3% in February 2026 from 5.4% in December 2025, and this was driven by both food and non-food inflation. Core inflation, which excludes energy and utility items, also declined, indicating muted underlying price pressures. Additionally, inflation expectations among consumers, businesses, and the financial sector remained broadly anchored. The strong disinflation during the past 14 months has been supported by the relatively tight monetary policy stance, cedi appreciation, and improved food supply conditions. Growth in monetary aggregates continued to slow in February 2026, reflecting the relatively tight monetary policy stance. Reserve money contracted by 0.5% year-on-year in February, compared to 68.8% growth a year earlier. Also, broad money supply growth eased to 16% from 33.1% over the same period. Interest rates on short-term bills declined sharply in the first 2 months of 2026 on the back of easing inflation expectations and fiscal restraint. Yields on the benchmark instrument, the 91-day Treasury bill, declined sharply in February. And also, average bank lending rates declined to 19.2% in February 2026 from 30.1% same month last year, leading to a gradual increase in private sector credit. Provisional data showed that fiscal outturn for the period January to December 2025 was marked by constrained government spending due to commitment control measures amid shortfalls in revenue. In the review period, the overall fiscal deficit on commitment basis was 1% of GDP, below the budget target deficit of 2.8%. On commitment basis, the primary balance recorded a surplus of 2.6% of GDP, exceeding the target of 1.5%. At the end of December 2025, the provisional public debt stock was equivalent to 45.3% of GDP, down from 61.8% at the end of December 2024. The banking sector performance improved in February 2026. Total assets increased, supported by domestic deposits, domestic borrowings, and shareholders' funds. The asset growth was mainly driven by investments, which rose by 57.5% compared to 8.6% growth in February 2025. The financial soundness indicators in terms of profitability, liquidity, solvency, asset quality, and efficiency, these all improved over the period. The non-performing loans, or NPLs ratio, declined to 18.7% in February 2026 from 22.6% a year earlier, driven by a pickup in bank credits and a contraction in the NPL stock. Despite improvement in asset quality, the NPL ratio remains a key risk to the banking sector. Going forward, the bank has put in place measures for the full implementation of the regulatory guidelines that are aimed at reducing NPLs in the banking industry. The external sector remained strong at the start of the year. The trade surplus improved to $3.7 billion in the first 2 months, compared with $2.1 billion during the same period last year, driven by higher gold export earnings and modest import growth. Gross international reserves, on the other hand, increased to $14.8 billion, which is equivalent to 5.8 months of imports cover as at end February 2026, up from $13.8 billion, which is equivalent to 5.7 months of imports cover at end December 2025. Reflecting the strong external sector, the cedi has remained relatively stable. And looking ahead, reserve accumulation is expected to strengthen further, especially under the Ghana Accelerated National Reserve Accumulation Program, which aims to increase the import cover to 15 months by 2028. In taking the policy decision, the committee, the MPC, noted continued improvements in domestic macroeconomic conditions during the first 2 months of the year. However, rising geopolitical tensions in the Middle East have deepened uncertainty in the external sector. The bank's latest forecast suggested that headline inflation will remain within the medium-term target. An upside risk to the inflation outlook includes the likely pass-through of higher crude oil prices and escalating geopolitical tensions. In the view of the committee, despite these upside risks to the inflation profile, the favorable domestic macroeconomic conditions, and also the high prevailing real interest rates, these provide scope to ease the policy rate further. Consequently, the MPC decided to reduce the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points to 14%. The committee will continue to closely monitor developments, especially in the Middle East, and its potential implications on the inflation outlook. The committee stands ready to take appropriate policy actions as needed to safeguard price stability. And on the usual informational note, the next Monetary Policy Committee meeting is scheduled for May 18th to 20th, 2026. That meeting also will conclude on May 20th, 2026, with the announcement of the policy decision. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Governor Dr. Johnson Pandit-Esiama. If you've just joined us, this is the 129th MPC press briefing, and you just listened to Governor Dr. Johnson Pandit-Esiama lowering the monetary policy rate by 150 basis points to 14%. Ladies and gentlemen, we're also live on Joy TV and also on some websites, BNFT, Graphic, Ghana Web, and also CTTV. Members of the media, how we always do it, we are going to take 4 rounds of questions. So you mentioned the media house, your name first, the media house that you represent, and kindly do not put narratives to your question. We just go straight to the point, and we take 4 questions at a time, 1 per each media house. The usual suspects, 1 per each media house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, Governor. My name is Joshua Wolasi Amblano with the Business and Financial Times. So during the pre-MPC, you raised a concern regards to the new policy regards to the gold accumulation. I would want to understand what was the discussion at the committee level with regards to the concentration risks that brings, as well as the liquidity impact that will have on the market. Thank you.
Yeah. Lord.
Thank you very much, Governor. My name is Lord Nate. I write for 3news.com. So, Governor, you mentioned that the banking sector's performance is improving. On the back of this, I want to ask this question. Last year, during the 125th MPC press conference, you mentioned that the central bank was going to assess the nostro accounts of the commercial banks. This was during the period that commercial banks were reported to have experienced shortage of dollars in the system. So I want an update on that one, the assessment of the nostro accounts of the commercial banks. Thank you.
Toma. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Governor. My name is Toma Imiri, and I represent Corporate Guardian magazine. Governor, you said that you expect inflation to remain within the central bank's bands, 6 to 10%. Now, right now, inflation is far below the minimum of that band. Does the committee expect any uptick in inflation at all below where it is now, above where it is now?
Thank you. Yes, next one.
My name is James Ishan from Joy News. Ghana, I want to know, given the rising global oil prices and geopolitical tension, isn't this rate cut risky at this time? And also, there seems to be a credit to the private sector, which seems to be subdued. What complementary measures is the bank considering beyond the rate cut to stimulate lending?
Put it off. Yes, thank you. Governor, we have
so we have 4 questions. First one on GANRAP. Your question was about concentration risks. Well, GANRAP is not only about gold. If you look at the document that was issued, it is broad. There's focus on the non-traditional exports, scaling up those as well. And so it's not just about gold, even though gold is a strong part of it. Liquidity impact, that will be subjected to the active reserve management that the central bank conducts. And so we don't see a problem on that. It is a program that the central bank put together with the Ministry of Finance, and so it is all well thought through. Of course, the fine details are still being worked out at this point, and so we don't see that problem of concentration risk, as you mentioned. Then there was a second question on Nostro account. Yes, I remember sometime last year we mentioned as part of the general FX reforms that we're implementing, that we're going to monitor these inflows, our FX, wherever it is, be it in the nostrils of banks, be it located anywhere. We're going to make sure that these are used to support, legitimate imports into the country. And we've been doing a good job at that. Remember the new FX framework that we introduced? You are aware of that already. And it's working very, very, very well. We've stepped up our monitoring efforts. We are seeing remittance inflows resume through the banking industry. And we continue to monitor these actively going forward. So yes, we have improved as far as our monitoring efforts are concerned on that note. Then Toma was asking on inflation, whether we expect it to uptick. Well, it all depends on whether the problem in the Middle East becomes persistent. For sure, because we are net importers of petroleum products, certainly if global oil prices surge, that will impact on export prices right here in Ghana. And as you are aware, it feeds into domestic inflation. So certainly there's that potential. But I must be quick to add that this is not the first time. There are a packet of, a set of measures that government can implement to cushion the effect of these. We've all been hearing that the authorities are thinking of ways, to cushion against those pressures. We are also monitoring what other countries are doing. There's this interesting one of Sri Lanka where they have reduced the 5-day working week to 4 days. Assuming that on holidays, the people don't use as much petroleum. Probably in Ghana, it will be the reverse. I'm sure people drive more even on holidays than. But let's wait for government to come out with the set of measures in case it becomes persistent to cushion the impact. The good thing in all these is we've accumulated enough reserves, nearly 5.9 months of imports cover. That should allow us to protect the gains going forward. But we are monitoring the situation, and the MPC is ready to act if we need to reevaluate the situation once again. Then, Joy News. Isn't this cut problematic? Not at all. Remember, this has been 3 days of going through a lot of material, looking at the outlook, evaluating the issues. We look at the banking sector. It is now solvent. It is liquid. It's growing by way of assets. NPLs, yes, elevated, but it's coming down. Private sector credit beginning to recover. A number of things we can do. First of all, the general level of interest rates is going down. So certainly the policy decision taken today should go to support, higher levels of private sector credit provision. We are talking with banks. We are engaging them. And you are aware that the general reference rate, for example, which the banks compute themselves, is now just about 11% or so. It has come down significantly. What that means is that some borrowers are able to borrow. They are able to access loans at rates as low as 11.7% thereabout. So yes, we are doing everything possible to shore up private sector credit. We are working with banks actively to make sure that financial intermediation is scaled up. I believe those are the 4 questions. The first set, yes. So we can go to the second set.
Thank you very much, Governor. So the next round of questions, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Nanoye, Class Media Group. Governor, with an end to the war not in sight, would you want to relook at your international reserves target of 15 months import cover by 2028? And I would want to also find out whether there's any collaboration with the fiscal side on concrete measures to cushion Ghanaians. Have they come to you on any concrete measures or support? Thank you.
Okay, Governor, my name is Ellen from Wizard TV. My question is on the legacy debt owed by Cocoa Board and government's plans to convert that. How would that reflect on Bank of Ghana's balance sheets, and would it affect future monetary policy operations? Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Moses from Bloomberg. Governor, how have we assessed the impact of the war on the FX market? And would the bank take any additional measures in that regard, aside from the spot FX sales? Thanks.
Yes, next one.
Echo, are you ready?
Okay. Thank you. I can take the question. Governor, thank you for the decision. Given that most of our raw gold exports goes to the Middle Eastern region, and given the ongoing travel restrictions and bans across that region, how is that affecting the exploitation of our gold and by extension the FX inflows? And are there any alternative markets that are maybe safer to receive Ghana's gold, especially from the small scale sector? Thank you.
Yeah, Governor, we have 4 questions.
Okay, so maybe we should start with the last one, Echo. Yes, you're right. Concentration of any kind can be risky. And I'm sure the gold board will be better placed as far as the small scale gold is concerned. But based on the data we have, there hasn't been a significant disruption. Exports of small scale gold is ongoing. We can get you the precise figures. I believe the head of the gold desk is right here. He can give you a sense of the exports that have been going to Dubai and other destinations over the past 2 months. But I do agree with you, the need to diversify the destinations going forward. Moses was asking about impact of the war on our FX. So if oil prices surge, for example, now I hear it's around $100 per barrel. If oil prices surge, what that means that the oil import bill also surges accordingly. And so you need more FX to be able to support the same volumes as you were doing before. And so it has a direct, effect on the FX, situation. If it turns out that the global shock is temporary, it's just transitory, that is easy to manage. But if it turns out that it is persistent, then you have to have a set of measures to stem the situation. A lot depends on what we do, but also what the fiscal authorities do. So the first thing we are saying is that we do have adequate reserves, to support these for a while. But we are working together with the fiscal authorities. I'm sure government will come out shortly based on their assessment of the situation, whether this is going to become, persistent or not. I believe government is working on something, and so we can wait to hear from government in that respect. But let me assure you that we talk with them regularly. We make sure that we are ready to protect the gains that have been made. Now, someone asked about the legacy debt that Cocoa Board has for the bank. Yes, there's a debt of about 1.38 billion that Cocoa Board, owes the central bank. But I must say that Cocoa Board has been servicing the interest, the coupon payments. Cocoa Board has never defaulted. They've been servicing these. And these are not new debt. This is debt that has been accumulated for a long time now, over 10 years ago. We are aware that government has taken the decision, probably, to take over that debt. For us, that will be a good thing. It will help our capitalization. But at this point, we are still in talks with government. And I can only assure you it will not impact any way adversely on our monetary policy operations. On the contrary, it should rather help our capitalization going forward. But we are still in talks with the Minister of Finance on that. Then the last one, any collaboration with the fiscal authorities. Oh, that is what I just spoke about, on ways to cushion the country against, persistent, increases in oil prices. Yes, we are thinking through it. As I mentioned, we need to assess whether it's going to be a transitory global shock or whether it will be persistent. At this MPC round, we're still observing, we're still monitoring the situation. We're looking at oil prices. We are looking at all other commodity prices. As of this morning, when I checked, gold prices have declined sharply to about 4,800. And so there's a lot of volatility out there. So it's for us to keep watching and to assess the situation, and that we will take the appropriate decision accordingly. I believe that does for the four questions under the second set.
Mr. Chairman, let me check with Moses again. Mozart, does it satisfy your question as well? All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we take the next round of questions, please.
I want to relook at the 15 months import cover because of the geopolitical tensions. Thank you.
The 15 months import cover under the gun wrap, this is a target by 2028, I guess. It's not a target for like this year. This is a medium-term target that we expect to achieve. And as I mentioned, it's about the reserves. It's not just about gold. So that target it has a lot of components within there. Scaling up non-traditional exports, they are all part of it. If we achieve that level of reserve, it's good. It strengthens, our external resilience. And as a commodity exporting country, as you know, previously we were borrowing from the Eurobond markets just to put into our reserves. We were doing swaps, and those were very expensive, to build reserves. Fortunately, now we don't have to borrow anymore. We are just able to accumulate these reserves and then be able to build up our resilience. So that is what we seek to do. Yes, the way to accumulate those reserves is important. You have to make sure that any, negative, impacts are kept to the barest minimum. We've heard people talk about the possible liquidity impacts. However, we have it covered. We've figured it out. We've thought through it deeply. And as I mentioned, the central bank was very much a part of that strategy. We worked together with the Minister of Finance and his team, and so we have it all covered. It's something that is not new to us. We'll manage the process until we get to that target. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you just joined us on our social media channel, this is the 129th MPC press briefing, and Governor Dr. Johnson Pandete-Siama, the chairman of the committee, has just announced a 150 basis points reduction in the policy rate to 14%. So we take the next round of questions, and as we are all aware, you have to be snappy and straight to the point.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Francis Into, Ghana News Agency. Governor, I would want to find out how far have you reached in ensuring that the losses incurred from G4R is transferred onto government's book. And since January 2026, what specific measures has been taken to address these losses, and what has been the impact? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I take a second bite of the cherry? All right, Governor, in the absence of any other new question, I have another one. Can you share with us some of your mitigative measures you are putting in place to limit the pass-through effects of the global price shocks on our markets, especially given that we still intend to keep inflation within the band targets? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, I want to find out from you what the projection for the local currencies performance for the year is. At the end of the year, what should we expect regarding the performance of the currency, the CD currency, please? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, we have limited to the microphone to one person at a time. So if you see it later for you, kindly go ahead and speak. Okay? Right.
My name is Adnan Adams. I work for Economic Times newspaper. I wanted to find out, March ending was the deadline for the two banks that are left to meet the capital requirement. So, or is the current update as getting to the end of March?
Okay. So we take those. That's four. So again, if I can start with the last one, capital recapitalization deadline for banks. As at December 2025, I mentioned these are the first MPC meeting. All banks, except two, had met it as at the end of December 2025. For the two remaining banks, we gave them up to end of March to also meet it. As we speak, one of the two is on course to meeting that, whilst the other one, is also making some strong efforts in that regard. So we envisage that the two banks will indeed be able to recapitalize. For one of the two, they may have to be given some little extension. But eventually, we do expect that before the half year, at most, all two banks will also be able to recapitalize, and then we can move forward. Then someone asked about our projection of the CD. Unfortunately, we treat the CD as an endogenous variable. And so we don't issue a target, for the CD. The target we have is for inflation. We allow the CD to float, to be determined by all other variables. And so we don't have any explicit target for it. I've always mentioned that what we have is a floating exchange rate framework. It's a managed floating operationally. So our aim in all these is to ensure that there is no excessive volatility That's what we try to control, excessive volatility. But as for the particular rate that the CD achieves or attains at any point in time, we allow that to be market determined. For those of you who are familiar with the new FX framework, there's an auction twice a week, and banks freely submit their bids, and the auction process, everything is transparent. I believe we have issued notices to that effect. So that's the framework that we have. We don't have any explicit target for the CD at all. All we can tell you is we think we'll be able to avoid excessive volatility in the CD, barring any unforeseen shock, such as a persistent, persistence in the Middle East crisis and its potential impacts. We should be able to maintain exchange rate stability. Then the mitigating measures to limit the pass-through effects. The situation is still evolving. The MPC took a deep dive into what we can do as a central bank. That discussion is still on. Remember, a good part of it has to be from the other side, the fiscal authorities, and so you might as well ask the Minister of Finance. We are aware that there are some discussions ongoing, even from this week. They're studying the situation. They will very soon come out with what government intends to do to mitigate the impact. For us, our job is to maintain an appropriate monetary policy stance. Our job is to ensure that we have adequate reserve buffers if we have to act, so we can deploy the set of tools needed to contain the situation. And I mentioned that the Monetary Policy Committee has signaled its readiness to respond. If we have to have an emergency meeting just to evaluate the situation and consider other tools necessary, we will. But as of now, we haven't announced any set of measures as yet. The whole thing is being monitored, and hopefully very soon we might hear something. But it might as well turn out to be a temporary crisis. Who knows? If the war ends next week, it goes with all the potential challenges that could come with it. So that's where we are currently. Moses, I'm sure that answers your question. Okay, we will announce if we develop those measures. Then the first one from the GNA, you were asking about the goal for reserves losses. So first of all, there is an ongoing audit of the entire domestic DGPP, domestic gold purchase program, not just for the G4R, but also for the other components, including the G4O. The audit is ongoing, and we want to wait for the results of that audit, and then we can take the next steps. And I'm happy to announce that government is doing its part to support the central bank in this regard. Remember, under the amendment to our act, the Bank of Ghana amendment law that was passed just about 3 months ago, government has committed to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana. As you are aware, our net equity position has deteriorated. What it means is that Bank of Ghana itself needs to recapitalize. The finance minister has done a good job. They have front-loaded that recapitalization agenda. They've already issued some bonds to us, which is a good step, which shows government's commitment to recapitalize the central bank and to address the negative net equity position. So as far as our balance sheet is concerned, government is doing everything possible to help us get back to positive net equity. However, the actual losses in terms of the DGPP from the time it started in 2022 up to now, all those are being audited, and so after they are audited, the appropriate measures will be taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll be having the last round of questions. But before we do that, let me say that the governor is supported by the other members of the MPC. The MPC is a 7-member committee, and here we have Dr. Zachary Mumuni, the first Deputy Governor, Mrs. Matilda Santier-Siedu, the second Deputy Governor, Dr. Philippa Bradiotu, our Head of Research. We have Gershon Ablezowu, who is the Head of Treasury, and Professor Joshua Abo. They are all here to support the Governor. Professor Ebo Texan is the 7th member, but is out of the jurisdiction at this point in time. So if you just joined us, it's the 129th MPC press briefing by the Governor, Dr. Johnson Pandit Esiama. And the monetary policy rate has been reduced by 150 basis points to 14%. So we take the last round of questions. And again, 4 questions. Thank you.
Governor, can I take advantage again?
Yes, Akko, you can.
Thank you so much, Governor.
Yeah.
Governor, you see, when we hear the word recapitalization, it takes us to a few years back. So, and then of course, there's something called the minimum capital requirement that used to be 400 million, about 40, whatever it is in dollars now. But to hear the central bank needing recapitalization is not a language we hear all the time. Tell me, when you talk about that, what do you mean? How much money are we talking about to remove you from the negative net equity position to a positive net equity position? At least a range. It helps. Thank you.
Maybe I should answer that one before we take any more. So, Echo, rest assured that the central bank's negative net equity position doesn't in any way prevent it from carrying out its mandate. We've always maintained that the central bank is a peculiar institution. We are able to conduct our operations as mandated on a continued basis. We say that we are still policy solvent, but nonetheless, we have to recapitalize in the light of the negative net equity position that started from somewhere 2022, in the midst of the crisis that occurred. And I've indicated that during last year, the negative net equity position deteriorated further. However, government, and remember, government is the sole shareholder of the central bank. And so when you need to recapitalize, who else has to recapitalize the central bank? It is government. Government has committed to do that. The law mandates it to do it by 2032. However, government has decided to start immediately. And they have given us a bond to that effect already, which is a good sign. Government has given us an MOU committing to get us out of that position as early as possible. So rest assured, no worries at all. We will continue to meet our mandate of price and exchange rate stability as well as financial sector stability. Nothing is going to get in the way at all. No worries.
Can I do a follow-up, please? Governor, yes, but it's the thing that followed the money. In order, you said we hear you, but you didn't put money to it. So say that maybe XYZ is needed, $1 million, $1 billion, for this whole process, for the Central Bank of the Republic of Ghana to be solvent and then have a positive equity position. Please, a bit more. Thank you.
No, so if we will publish our financial accounts by the end of this month, by the end of March, and then you can see where the pressures came from. For example, our law mandates that government more or less helps us to meet, for example, the cost of monetary policy. 2025, we incurred huge, amounts to be able to achieve the low inflation that we achieved last year, the exchange rate stability we got last year. It came at a cost. To give you some figures, and I've thrown those figures out already, monetary operations alone, we spent close to 17 billion last year. It doesn't come cheap. But stability itself is a public good. It's the bedrock of everything we do in this country. And the law mandates that government more or less supports us when it comes to those. And so what I'm telling you is we've engaged government, and government has shown the goodwill. It has already started, helping us to recover some of those costs. We are talking with them. We have an MOU that we are working on, and so that over time we are able to recover all those costs and be able to work our way back into positive equity. But remain assured that the work we do, we are mandated to do under our act, will not be impacted at all. We are still policy solvent. We'll continue to do what the people of Ghana have access to do for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Governor Norvan, your hand has been up for some time. Yes.
My name is Norvan Akoyefo. Thank you, Mr. Governor. I have two questions. I know you've tried to answer the first one, but if you can give us some clarity, what specific domestic indicators actually gave the MPC enough confidence to ease so aggressively at this point? If you can tell us that. And we've been worried about how, the cuts in the policy rate, transmit direct into household and all that. So we want to find out from you, how quickly does the bank expect today's decision to transmit into lower lending rates for businesses and household? And what is your message to the commercial banks themselves to ensure that the cut delivers real relief to the productive sectors rather than remaining largely on paper?
Right. Thank you very much, Norvan. I think Eko took 2 of the 4 questions. So, Norvan, I will treat yours as one. Nanoye and I think Lord will be the last 2. Okay, so Nana and Lord.
Yeah, mine is a follow-up to Norvan's own. So before this press conference, I spoke to Guta, and they said that they applaud you for reducing the rate, but they wanted to reflect on lending rates. So if you can just, maybe you want to assure them that that will happen.
All right, thank you. So, Governor, on Monday, when you opened the sitting, you highlighted that the Middle East crisis poses significant threats to the fundamentals of this economy. Now, last week, the MP, the National Petroleum Authority, the CEO explained that about 60% of the oil that we import into this country is coming in from Europe. And then we have Tema Oil Refinery and Senti also doing about 30%. So really, we are not getting that much from the Middle East. So I want to ask or find out from you, to what extent does this particular Middle East crisis pose a danger to our economy, given that we do not import a lot from the Middle East? Thank you.
These are the questions.
Yeah, so we have 4 of them. So as usual, if we can start with the 4th one. Yes, it may be true that 60% of our oil comes from Europe, but global oil prices are global oil prices. It is what it is. When oil prices go up, they don't go up in Europe and don't go up in the Middle East. It's the same, whatever it is. So the risks are significant. As I mentioned earlier, it all depends on whether it is transitory or whether it is persistent. The good part is we have adequate reserves as far as the central bank is concerned. But if it's going to be persistent, government is discussing these issues. I'm sure very soon they will come out, especially if it is clear that it's a crisis that will be persistent. There are a number of relief measures that can be rolled out to protect Ghanaians, and so government will do its part. But we are also monitoring the situation on our side. Then Guta, our good friends Guta, they would want to see lower lending rates, right? They want to see the policy rate reflect. And I believe so far we've done that. Compared to where we started last year, lending rates have gone down significantly. So we're on course. We're on the right path. Look at where government bill rates are currently. Gradually, banks are calling people, and I'm hearing those reports. Banks calling them on phone, asking them to apply for a loan. Gradually, we are getting there. But as I always say, one problem we have in this country is everybody goes to the bank to borrow money. But it mustn't be so. banks are financial intermediaries, right? You should be able to go to the stock exchange and borrow money directly. There are companies that can issue commercial paper. Banks will not be involved. And most of the time you will get it, such monies cheaper than you get through a bank. The only thing there is you'll be required to have some higher standards when it comes to governance, when it comes to transparency, when it comes to accountability. You are held up to higher standards. And we want to see, more companies going for that type of financing, especially when what you are looking for is a longer-term financing. That's what you can use a bank loan for, but if it is a longer-term financing you are looking for, a bank is not the first place you should go. So we are working together with the capital market regulator, if you've been monitoring, to increase, the access to such financing to Ghanaian firms. So we'll do our part to improve on the situation for GUTA and its members. Then Norman, you were asking why the MPC took this decision. Domestic inflation is on the decline, you are aware. And from the assessment, as far as the outlook is concerned, the MPC felt that the trend decline will continue. We weighed the risks, and it's clear that at this MPC round, we have to wait and watch. The significant risk in the outlook is the Middle East, crisis and its potential impact. As we speak, it's not very clear if this is going to be persistent or not. We hear the U.S. president, for example, saying that they are going to wrap this up very soon. I listened to him about 3 days ago. So we are monitoring the situation. If indeed they are able to wrap it up very soon, that means it will be short term, and we will get over this. So we are monitoring the situation, Northern. You were also asking about how this ease goes to support the productive sectors. That is what it is. That is exactly what I just said. Lending rates, they are beneficial, whether it's to a productive sector or not. But what we would want to see from the central bank is that these firms patronize not just the banks, but also the capital market. Even as lending rates, go down, we want to see them take advantage of the opportunities that are there. And as we speak, maybe you can engage the capital market regulator to see what's going on there. There are firms that are borrowing cheaper through the capital market. The only thing is for you to commit to be subjected to higher standards when it comes to ownership, when it comes to transparency, regulatory issues. The standards are higher. But at the end of the day, it helps to run your business. So we should encourage more and more of our colleagues to take advantage of those. Now, Eko, you still asked about recapitalization. I missed it. Would you be kind to, I guess I answered you. If there are any residual issues on recapitalization, it's done. All right.
You did, thanks.
Okay. Very well. Very well. So, Otabel, it's okay. We are still here. If there's any bonus question, we are ready to take it.
Right. Okay, my name is Mark. I work with UTV. Governor, I've been hearing this thing, and I'm reading from Kofi Bentel's page. He said, I'm quoting, "Don't forget this government sold 18 tons of our gold when all forecasts showed that gold prices were rising. Now they want to buy it back at a loss of almost $2 billion. I sincerely hope they have good reasons for that. So far, I haven't heard any good reason," unquote. Governor, I get confused when I hear some of these things. Did we sell our gold for good reasons, and did it benefit Ghanaians? Thank you very much.
All right, so, these things, you have to put them into proper context. It's not that literal. So, as I said today, gold prices are at 4,800. It went up to 5,003. Now, what that tells you is that it's very volatile. There's no guarantee that it will stay at 5,3 forever. Now, a decision was taken last year to diversify. At the time, there was no indication that the Venezuela crisis, for example, was going to escalate, or the Iran crisis was going to escalate. At the time, everyone thought prices had peaked, and then it was around 4,200. Everyone thought the prices, had gone, up to maximum levels. Now, in taking those decisions, the appropriate channels were used. There were no breaches. A lot of the things we hear out there are just things you don't even want to respond to. We have all the information. I was in Parliament last week to answer all those questions. Mr. Kofi Bentil, ask him to come to us anytime. Just ask him to give me a call. I'm available to open up the books. Those things being said outside there, I don't know what it's supposed to achieve. But we are here transparently. We'll walk you through the books, why we had to take that decision, why we believe it's a good decision at that time. Going forward, it's still a good idea to accumulate, gold. Why? Because given where we are now, we can expect gold prices, to go up over the next couple of years. If you study what's happening geopolitically, it makes sense to accumulate gold right now, whether at 4,800 or 4,005 or at 5,003. You can be sure that gold prices will go up significantly within the next 2 or 3 years. So it's fine to buy new, products, production of gold. Currently, hold it. In the future, prices will go up. And if at some point, strategically, a decision is made to diversify again, you do it. Remember that transaction, we made a profit of over $1.3 billion on that. It's all within our international reserves. And when we say we have 5.9 months of imports cover, it's all within there. There are no losses, nothing lost whatsoever. If we knew that gold prices would forever be at 5,300, maybe that would be considered. But today, as we speak, it's dropped, and it could go down, it could go up. It's a very volatile commodity. And so we shouldn't just draw such conclusions. They are two separate things. What was done last year to diversify was a different thing. What is being done now under gun wrap and other strategies to accumulate is also a different thing. But maybe through your channel, encourage Mr. Kofi Bentil to pay me a visit. He should stop all those wild allegations. We are transparent. We are ready to answer him. I thought he would be in Parliament when we went there to discuss it. We are ready. He should just make a call and come over. We are ready to walk him through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can bring the program to a close now. I can't see anyone coming up again. Mr. Governor, I think we can do that. As you heard the Governor, there's a lot of volatility out there. It means that economies are not deterministic, and therefore you cannot solve economic problems with neat equations. Our actions in actions all influence macroeconomic outcomes, including the reports that you are.
Definitely a bold decision there from the Bank of Ghana. Decision is that they've cut monetary policy rate by 150 basis points as called by IC Capital. Now policy rate is 14%. And I want to pick two words that I picked from the Governor in terms of the tensions going on in the Middle East. He says there are two questions. Either what is going on is transitory or is persistent. And per the decision they have taken today, definitely the direction is that this could be transitory because the war might end anytime soon or possibly could persist. But I still have with me in the studio my colleagues, George Biafe is still here, Caleb Zeblim, and Winston Taki. And we also have on Zoom industry players, stakeholders who are joining us for this important conversation. Big decision taken by the Bank of Ghana. CEO of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu-Abuaje, is joining us. I'll pick the comments of my colleagues in studio, but I want to start from Mark first. Mark, 150 basis points, is that what you expected?
Hello?
Mark, can I hear you?
Yeah, but I can. I think the internet is a bit bad.
Yeah.
But if you can hear me, then we can proceed.
Absolutely, I can hear you.
Yes, for me, I think it's a fair reduction. A 150 basis point reduction is fair. Looking at what is happening around this time, In fact, proud to the conflict we are having in the Middle East, we have predicted a much bigger reduction, at least 3%. But we also understand the risk, the upside risk that this conflict poses to inflation and all macroeconomic variables. So I basically think that it's fair. It's a fair reduction, and we want to say thank you to the central bank for, in spite of the difficulty, in spite of what we are hearing of a possible spike in inflation, they move forward to reduce the policy rate by 150 basis points.
How quickly are you expecting this to reflect, especially in the lending rate? Because, I mean, even though we've had more than 1,000 basis points, capital to private sector is still not really good, or with the level that we would want it to be. How soon or how fast do you expect this to actually reflect in the market in terms of the lending rate?
I think it should be as soon as practicable. For us, the reduction in policy rates, even though it's a necessary condition, businesses will benefit when the commercial banks also reduce their lending rate, how it reflects on the commercial banks, and the ease and how fast or soon that they also reduce their lending rate. So we have seen a reduction in lending rates over the period that we have also seen a reduction in policy rate. At the moment, I think it's about 19.2 or so. And the reference rate has also gone down. With this, immediately, I think that the banks will sit down and reduce their Ghana reference rate, and that will ensure that it fits into a lending rate. So I personally don't think that they should wait much longer time. The policy rate had gone down. The Ghana reference rate should go down immediately, and then the lending rate should follow. This is what we need. As businesses, the policy rate, even though it's good, is one of the things that we look out for, how it reflects on the lending rate. That is where when we go to the banks, we can get to borrow at a much lower interest rate. So the Bank of Ghana had done its work. Now the ball is within the court of the commercial banks. And I think we also had a meeting with the Ghana Bankers Association about 2 weeks ago. And we appeal to them that they shouldn't wait much longer time when the policy rate goes down. Sometimes it takes a longer time. But once it's as significant as 150 basis points, the lending rate should go down as soon as possible, so that the businesses can also borrow at a much lower rate and expand their businesses. We are all talking about unemployment. These are the areas that we are expecting that the central bank and the government will do. By reducing lending rates, businesses can also borrow and also expand and employ more people. So I think the commercial banks, they know what to do, and we are appealing to them to do that as soon as possible.
All indicators still looking very positive. There's a big confidence in what is happening locally, and because of that, 150 basis point rate cut has actually been meted up. But the big question is, are you really feeling the impact in terms of GDP expansion, lower inflation? Many are saying that we currently have an inflation of a developed country, 3.3%. There's also a rate cut which confirms what the authorities actually believe is the improvement in the economy, especially from the local front. Are you really feeling the impact?
If I heard you were asking whether we are feeling the impact,
absolutely.
The internet went a bit bad.
Exactly.
If that is your question.
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, obviously, previously we were borrowing at 35%. And until this announcement, I mean, some are borrowing between 20 and 22. So obviously, the impact is there. But usually, it takes much longer time for these macroeconomic variables to translate into the micro. Because much as these ones are reducing, the government is also increasing other costs of production like electricity and all those things. But in terms of the lending rates, we have seen a significant reduction. One challenge is access to long-term funding, as the governor rightly said. That has been a challenge over the period. For short-term funding, 3 months, you are likely to get it. But what we need now is long-term funding. It's advising that we look at to the
stock market,
the other side of also the stock market, other side, also getting facility for ourselves. That is something that we are also informing our members. But we have seen a reduction in policy rates, and the lending rate is fine. But we still feel that the lending rate is still very high. And as we move forward, we are expecting that it will reduce further. We are holding the governor to his word of reducing the lending rate to 10% and the policy rate to 10%, and lending rate also coming below 10%. So on that score, we've also seen the stability in the foreign exchange market, and that is also reflecting the prices that we see when you go to the market. You see that there has been a significant reduction in prices of other goods and services. But as we sustain these gains, we sustain inflation coming down, we sustain policy rate coming down, and also the cedi strengthening against the other major trading currencies, we are likely to see a further reduction in prices. And businesses will take advantage of the environment created and also expand and employ more people. So we are feeling it. I mean, the heat in 2 years back, the heat 3 years back was just too much. People couldn't do anything. Some business had to collapse. But now I think that the confidence is back. The heat is a bit reduced. We are expecting that at least we get a bit colder so that we can walk to the bank and borrow at less than 10%. That is what we are looking for. But I think we will get there. For me, my concern has been what we are experiencing with the media. It had not been that, I'm sure that the policy rate would have gone down by 300 basis points, as we have predicted. And we hope that this will not last long. The war that I'm talking about will not last long. And very soon, the parties will come into an agreement and stop it so that we all have peace in the world. And businesses are the ones that are going to benefit, as well as the consumers as well.
Thank you, Max. To stay with us, we'll come to you, but I want to come to studio and speak to my colleagues. And I mean, very uncertain periods, central bank deciding to cut 150 basis points. In fact, if you look at central banks across Africa, within the last 1 year, we've done more cuts than any other country. And many have said that possibly because we did more hikes during our crisis period than any other country. But the projection was that there was going to be a cut, right? But we simply do not know the magnitude. Are you surprised, 150 basis points? I am not surprised. Sometimes when we use the basis point, it comes across as too large. I mean, let's do the percentage points. 1.5. 1.5 percentage points, right? Yeah, 1.5 percentage points. I think that if you read a lot of literature before this, and the good thing is that the markets can now predict the policy rate, and that's a good thing. Because, again, we are all watching the data. When you listen to some comments just before this meeting, then it gave you some reason that, oh, if they go the extreme, they will hold it. But if you read a lot of reports before this, you realize that the market can now forecast because the governor has always reminded us that stability. Watch the data. Again, he gave the assurance again. I thought we were all reading his mind when he said that the reserve position is quite strong. So they can even gamble. And again, I won't use the basis point, percentage 1.5. It's a marginal cut. And I think that they want to observe the market and see whether what will happen and they react again. But I think that it's interesting. He's also given us the assurance that they are in a strong position to absorb the shocks for now. And that will not be taken over by events, and that also gives me some assurance. The assurance also is that they are engaging government and some policy measures will be rolled out on the fiscal side to also try and cushion consumers and also try and mitigate the expected shock. So for me, I wasn't surprised. It was more of, I'm waiting for the minutes of this MPC meeting to see how the swing went. But it was just that 1.5 percentage point or a hold. And I think that for me, it was expected. Caleb, I mean, the data we looked at, I mean, although all the economic indicators have improved, the biggest uncertainty or black box in the room was the war in the Middle East, right? And because of that, I mean, there were expectations that we possibly could hold, right? 150 basis point. George doesn't want to use it. You want to use 1.5 percentage point. But were you surprised? Because the data we looked at, I mean, preferably you could say that, well, it would have been good to possibly hold. And yet, let me just do a reading into that. I mean, before this, we also at J Business, we did some poll with about 5 analysts. 3 of them were analysts, 2 of them were economists. It was more of a 4-1. A 4-1. 4 of them were looking for this cut. 1.5 percentage point cut. And there was one economist among them that was also pushing for a rate hold. So as I said, that the market can predict these things. And don't forget that when the market is able to predict, then they can even move with certain actions before
the regulatory measure comes in as well, and just the rule interaction.
But I mean, you were looking at, Caleb, you were looking at a hold, right? Yep. And in terms of the fact that with cuts, and James asked an important question to the governor that many have said that looking at what is going on in the Middle East, don't you think that it is too risky to cut at the moment? And he answered, all right, but do you think that the data actually confirms what the governor said?
So like we said, we discussed earlier, I'm a bit surprised that we did the 1.5% to take the 1.5% cut in the policy rates, but I'm not so surprised because the data pointed to a cut. The only new variable that was added in was the uncertainty in the Middle East, and that was the only reason why there could have been rate hold and not a rate cut. Also, the 1.5 seems a bit steep to me, but then again, if you look at the data, it was pointing to a much steeper cut. The only difference this time around is that the Middle East crisis is a bit uncertain. And if you listen to the governor and his body language and his choice of words, you could tell that from the bank's point of view, they don't really see this as a long-term.
Transitory.
He used the word transitory so many times in the press briefing. So I think the extra data that the bank had seen from the staff at the BOG pointed to the fact that this war cannot be sustained for a much longer time. And also remember that we are going on a path here from the highs of 28% to now about 15%. So if you distort that momentum, it's going to affect the industry.
Signal.
Exactly, because now the banks and the industry players are now getting used to the reduced aligning to the reduced policy rates, especially because there's always a bit of a lag between the policy rates and then the lending rates for the banks. So now if you come and hold it, that expected reduction in the lending rates is not going to happen because banks are still going to hold on to the 15.5% policy rates. So in a nutshell, I'm a bit surprised because I was expecting, I think I'm very conservative.
Like some members, I don't
more conservative.
Very conservative. So I think I'll be looking forward to the minutes and I want to understand each of the members and why they decided to cut. And if it was a tie, but there was a split vote.
A breaker.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see that in the coming days.
Well, but also reading can we read the governor's body language and see where the governor would have gone?
I think the governor would have preferred that we stay.
No, I think the governor would have preferred a cut. Yeah.
I don't think so. I looked at the governor. He didn't look like
his body language.
Body language didn't really look like somebody who wanted a cut. 150 basis points.
It's a short term.
That is the general belief of the committee that he has to communicate. Right, but you have to ask yourself personally, what does the governor believe in terms of the risk involved, the magnitude of the risk, and the fact that although he uses the word transitory, but he still uses another word called persistent. He's not so sure whether what we are experiencing is transitory or persist. And he makes mention of the fact that he listened to Donald Trump saying that the war will end soon and all of that. But definitely, although Donald Trump has heard all of this, we've seen the war persist for more than 2 weeks, going into the third week, and possibly many have said that we will exceed 1 month. And the market is reacting to it. So, I don't know, but for me, his body language felt like somebody who would have wanted...
And don't forget, I think he's also someone who is always concerned about the political economy. There are some economists who want to just focus on the numbers, but don't forget every decision that you take, it has a political implications as well. So how do you look at what you take and the impact on the political economy as well? And I think that he's somebody who often aligns himself with the political implications of whatever action that you take.
And before Winston comes, I think the central government did make some assurances to the bank to allow them to make this cut. Because he kept saying that the central government or the government of Ghana will come out and bring out some policy support.
In fact, I actually noted that one down. I'm sure Winston spoke about the assurance from the fiscal side for relief, especially the energy sector. Right?
And don't forget that we were talking about the shocks that the reserve will take. It will come from the energy sector. I don't know, I need to be educated here. With a spike in the price, we might have made some gains over the period as well. Don't forget that the petroleum arrangement also, there's a bit where there's supposed to be a stabilization fund. I stand to be educated on when there are these distortions to the budget, there's supposed to be some reserves also there as well. So it appears that Atuforsen has a lot of room to act.
When it comes to how I think, I'm always more comparative in my analysis. And I always say it's best okay to compare the previous governor before and the current governor, how they approach in handling things. And if you look at Dr. Siama's approach, it seems like a carry-along approach. He communicates his intention and acts on it, and he always ensures collective decision-making. From the onset, he said that there's going to be openness. Usually, there was not this kind of much of transparency.
Exactly.
How the committee members decided what they considered into coming out with their decisions.
It's actually unprecedented. We've never had.
And this tells you the approach, because previously, the market could not necessarily predict. Even if your prediction, your factors, just as we decided, if the numbers pointed to a different angle, we saw a sustained policy rate for a considerable number of months, and we're wondering, why are we not taking certain decisions in certain directions? It all boils down to the objective of the governor. And if you look at this objective, he says he predicts that the policy rate should at least reach 10% by 2030, basically. That is his objective. He's hoping that we get to a point where the cost of borrowing would be very cheap. So he's working towards that goal. But just as he's working towards that goal, there are considerations of external factors, just as the U.S. factors have come to play. We don't know, maybe another factor will come into play. But it all boils down to how the governor or the central bank is supporting the monetary aspect of our systemic governance. So, yes, the governor may have a strategy. The one thing I love about what is happening now is how the finance ministry and the central bank are working collaboratively in aligning the policy. So at least one will not be on the other side, leaving the other behind. So we see the central bank ensuring that the interest rate is down, while the government is also working on the part where there's availability of funds for various capital expenditure. Let's not forget there are consideration of risks should there be cases where our projection in oil sectors revenue do not align, where the big push is also coming to light. Government debt are also coming to light. All these considerations are something the central bank may take in deciding the next outlook. So yes, I perceive that, yes, IC security is what I give them kudos, because looking at the factors that when I was doing my research.
On point.
Yeah, when I was doing my research, and later I went to read their report, I was like, these people really did their work, and I give them kudos for coming out with this projection, because consistently there have been several projections that has not aligned with. So
but I think that actually sides with George's point that once the market is able to predict.
Yeah, and not just maybe just IC. There were a lot of reporters when you read through that were going towards this direction. And I mean, Kofi, if you listen to the governor, there is something in what they call Bloomberg intelligence that they do. You do analysis on an individual and his posture and all those things. And the governor has always made that point that we will not be guided by sentiments, public pressure, but by the data. And if you do go with the data says everything all, that there is room for cut. What they were only worried about is the impact of this Middle East thing. So you could have seen maybe a 3.5% basis point cut or even 400. But because of just this external thing, we want to be careful. But again, watch the data, act on the data. It is not sentiment, there's no political pressure. And the data is saying everything.
The NPL levels are being controlled because it keeps rising consistently. Interest rates now on short-term bonds will be quite minimal. Now, where banks will be able to put their money, where individuals will be able to invest, or banks will be able to make profit. Now, the interest margins in terms of availability of loans will reduce because, yes, we will see the overall outlook. Now, banks will be under compressed pressure in making more profit. There is going to be a whole structural effect in as much as the overall objective is to ensure availability of funds to the small and medium-skilled and private sector to grow. We've heard from the business community. They said they are happy, but let us also see more production coming from their side to support the real economy at the end of it.
And Kofi, quick one. As a regulator, you also want to move the market along. And so what are the signals you send into the market? Because again, if they watch the data and you're not responding to your own data, and the market doesn't want to work with you and they lose confidence, it's also a big problem for any regulator of the financial market. So if the data is pointing to even a huge cut and you do a marginal one, the market will realize that you are responding to what is happening in the market, and the market moves along with you.
And if you check all the confidence surveys that the Bank of Ghana did for this particular decision for this month or this quarter, both business confidence up by more than 117%. There's also the, the consumer confidence also up, currently around 117.7. Business confidence is 110. Massive improvement compared to where we used to be around this same time in 2024. It used to be 92.2 and 96.6.
You cannot have your inflation dropping to 3.3
and not be.
And your own projection tells us that you will still be in the single-digit rate, and even within your medium-term target, you are way below that one. You have on the fiscal side, government continues to drop its rate. Why? Because he has a strong reserve position and a surplus to work with. So unless the committee is telling us that all these data are not accurate, you want to respond to some of these developments to give some confidence to the market. If you have all these indices going down, your reference rate is going down. I said that, look at the real interest rate, about 12% gap.
Yeah. All right. George, let me go on Zoom and speak to Professor Esumeh. He's on phone. He's a professor of finance, also joining us as an economist. Prof, 150 basis point, George would like to use 1.5 percentage points. We had IC Capital predicting this spot on, but are you surprised? Were you expecting this rate cut, or you were expecting a hold?
Good evening, and good evening to viewers, and then also panelists in the studio. Thanks for having me. I think that it is somewhat what I expected. So if you look at the information presented, and I have been following the discussion, I think in the main you say there isn't any immediate risk to growth based on the information that has been presented. Consumer confidence is up, business confidence is up, as we are talking about. Then credit to the private sector is also doing relatively well. There's no immediate risk to the growth outlook. On the other hand, if you look at the inflation outlook, even though we are way below the target, I think that if you look at what is coming up, especially the China shortcoming with this, the war involving U.S. and Israel on one side and the Iran, you can clearly see there are some risk to inflation coming up. We've already seen this week the fuel prices go up. So I think that perhaps if this hasn't happened, then maybe the central bank we would have seen a bigger cut in the policy rate. So for me, it is reasonable for a central bank being cautious, knowing that there's this shock coming up. We don't even know when this war is going to end. We don't really fully understand the extent of its impact will be on the inflation outlook, how long it will last, and how deep it will be. So I think that not cutting the policy rate so much is a reflection of the need to be more careful. And I think on this occasion, I started with the MPC not cutting the rate so much. Even though I understand what Satoli is saying, that giving the indicators, perhaps it wanted a bigger cutback. At the same time, if you look at the growth number that has just been released, the economy has performed better than last year. It has performed better in 2025 than 2024, and it also has performed the projection. So all of these tells you that there isn't really an immediate risk to the growth outlook, but there are some things to be cautious about on the inflation outlook. That's why I think 150 basis point cut is quite reasonable.
Okay, thank you, Professor Esumeh. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. This is still a special coverage of that big decision by the Bank of Ghana. And the news is out there, 150 basis point cut. in the monetary policy rate now, talking about 14%, but George is laughing in the studio. Well, we'll take a quick turn. When we'll be back with more on this analysis. Winston Taki is still here, Caleb Ziblim, and George Riafe. We still have Mark Bedu-Abuaje still joining us on Zoom. Doc will take leave of us, but we'll be back with more. Still our special coverage on that big policy rate decision, 150 basis points, 1.5 percentage point rate cut, 14%. We've heard from industry, we've heard from an economist. I've also come to the studio, we've heard from my colleagues, and we're actually analyzing the data and trying to actually get other forward guidance from some of the things the governor actually mentioned. Away from the policy decision, the governor gives an indication that, the Bank of Ghana's recapitalization exercise is happening, and that he actually revealed that government has gone ahead to actually give them some bonds to make their books look good. He also revealed that the bank will be publishing its financial report by the end of this month. We'll get to know a lot of things from that report as well. But let me still come to the studio and engage my colleagues on this particular revelation, especially on the recapitalization. There were so many projections that because of the nature of the DDEP and the fact that the Bank of Ghana had to forgo about 40 billion Ghana cedis, it was going to be difficult for them to actually perform some of these duties like policy rates cut, intervention, normal operation and all of that. But they're still doing it, and even though there are challenges.
Again, I would say that if you engage the market, this information was out about government conceding to do the recapitalization. How did the IMF program play a role in this? Maybe the verdict is still out there in terms of the funding system that this has to be done. How has the economic situation improved for government that, again, now, Atufo now has more room now in terms of surplus or reserves or whatever to do this, and that is why you have to do it, because don't forget about the implication of this on the broader economy. So again, if you do the market surveillance and engagement, you realize that Atufo took the decision that in the interest of the larger economy, and again trying to reinforce confidence in the market space, I have to do this. And what does that mean for the Bank of Ghana? Now, if you don't have to think about this, I mean, you can also move all out to support the fiscal space with those monetary measures. So I think that it was expected. I wasn't expecting the governor to announce this thing now, but whether he was pushed with that question to announce it. And so for me, it was expected to do this. And it will mean a lot for market confidence, and again, for those who are worried about the Bank of Ghana's position, to support the market with its open market operations and all those. Then don't forget the timing also. We are a few days away from the release of the financials. Even though they are going to take a hit, it is better to be an improved position of what we had the previous year. So maybe he needed to put this thing out to, again, give some market confidence.
But Caleb, this is more of the governor made an indication, more bonds. Do you think that that's a big risk? Because, I mean, we've seen the recapitalization that was done for the local banks, and many have said that, well, they took in so much bonds that although their books look really good, but they're not liquid. In the case of the Bank of Ghana, it looks like the strategy is to give more bonds.
So I think we have to understand this from the central government's point of view. Initially, there was some hesitation between the central government not wanting to do this. I remember the finance minister saying that the BOG should sell their nice building.
Or rent it out.
Nice building is actually behind you.
So I think the government is trying its possible best to support the central bank while not, leaving the economy in a very vulnerable position, and also trying to let the central bank, take responsibility for some of the actions. So I think this is the government's way, and also this was just the first indication we've got. I'm sure there are more, talks and more detail that will come out later on. And especially because, and George mentioned that we are still under an IMF program. And it's very important that your central bank is in a very good position when you leave the IMF program. And remember that when the gold board conversation came up and there was a 200 million loss on the BOG's books because of gold board's operations, the IMF was very clear that transfer these books to gold board or to the central government. So I think as part of the entire recapitalization talks, they are going to move this loss from the central bank's books either to the central government or directly onto gold board's books. So this is also another leg of the conversation that I'm sure is already happening, or if not already done. But we also have to understand, moving forward, the relationship between the BOG and gold board now. We know earlier this year, the CEO of Goldboard said they're going to take full control of their operations. Once whether that's done, because once the BOG is still financing some of the gold purchases, it leaves them very vulnerable. And if the government comes to recapitalize the bank while leaving this door open, then you're just prolonging the situation. So I think the capitalization needed to happen, just about when. And also if you see the acts of the BOG that was just amended in Parliament, it was inside the act that the central government will support you to clear your books and then give you a better footing. So I think I didn't expect to hear this now. Maybe when the reports came out, we'll see it in the annual report. And also the loss position, the BOG had taken some hits. So I think informing the markets ahead of time to prepare their minds for the final release of the reports, because the BOG definitely made losses, and the government mentioned that they spent about $17 billion cedis
for sterilization, right?
Yeah, on the OMO cost, and that's even without the exchange rate differential, because once your CD is stronger now, all your investments in dollar terms will come down, and then also the exchange rate losses will also come to play, along with the OMO operations you've also done. So I think all these things together are pointing towards a much weaker balance sheet for the central bank. So letting the markets and the public understand that we're already in talks with the central government to help us clear some of our equity and the negative equity and all of that is supposed to send some strong signals to the market. So I think it was.
Quick one. I mean, you raised the issue about diesel bonds, but don't forget that the central bank has maintained the point that they are policy solvent. And so maybe they might not need that liquidity maybe enough right now, but just to something that will give the assurance.
Yeah, for the central bank, I think liquidity will not be an issue.
Because they are
for the commercial banks,
it could be an issue.
Nature, especially.
Yeah, but also, what is the state of the commercial banks right now as we speak?
You said they are liquid, right?
So so it's more of something just to give the market assurance that a paper that I'm holding on, when I'm in crisis, I can call on that paper. And don't forget that the central bank is the bank of the. You remember there was a time that they had some position there, and they had to call on it because so don't worry, you can do whatever that you do. Your money is with me.
Exactly.
I'll call on that money when I need it.
Yeah, audio money.
In as much as this is a very positive thing, let's not forget that if you look at the body language also of the finance minister, he does not like expensive loans. So in these instances where now the cost of borrowing has come down, certainly he will still be going back to the market to get access to capital to finance statutory obligations going forward, and that will not be much of an expensive vendetta going forward.
That's a very good point.
Exactly. So, and this is, like you said, mentioned during the DGEP, the government backed the central bank. The same thing happening now. So they both have to work collaboratively, or else one is likely to fall off along the line. So both of them are managing the risks involved in upholding the economy, considering the fact that all this boils down to ensuring investor confidence are sustained. With the numbers that we are looking at, compared to our neighboring Francophone countries, it appears we are kind of looking very good. One thing that is quite positive that we have to sustain as a country going forward is to protection of our borders and ensuring the Sahel crisis and all those local regional tensions are maintained. If we are not careful, we started just last 3 weeks concerning the cocoa tomato exporters, importers into the country. Let's not belittle any external tension that are trickling into our economy. It has a tendency to uphold any of the, imagine when there is no peace, nobody will come and ask you about what is happening to your macro and micro. That one will not be a matter of consideration, just as it's happened in Dubai and other countries now, Israel, Iran. Nobody will come and ask you what is the price of food, because automatically economic foundations are derailed, irrespective of what the policies have been. Peace is the most important commodity, and let's ensure that is adhered to going forward.
Now, final one on cocoa sector, because you made mention. I'm looking at the numbers, and it's quite surprising. Our position as of February last year and the current position February this year. As of February last year, inflows from cocoa exports was around 1.2 billion cedis. Now we are doing $956 million, dollars. From $1.2 billion to now $956 million.
That was expected, considering the sector's outlook. Initially, there has been tension, the reforms that have gone into the cocoa sector, and the whole restructuring if you look at the IMF assessment, they projected, they had actually were considering and were positive and spoke about the cocoa board and asking that the financing restructuring need to be done. So I'm sure it's the home cleaning, house cleaning that is happening in cocoa board that is leading to this projection coming down, alongside how the global market has been so far. So certainly, let's hope that the output in this season, the next season, that the beans harvest will necessarily have that demand on the international market alongside what Cote d'Ivoire is producing. We know the European market now are receiving more grinded product, not just raw beans. So if government's policy and reform ensuring that about 50% of our local beans are processed, I'm sure we can get more in terms of value.
So, guys, I mean, final one, comments on how the war will actually, pan out in the coming weeks, and whether we might see an emergency MPC meeting should the war escalate in a direction that we possibly have not, estimated. Should crude prices go up as high as, let's say, 150 per barrel, are we likely to have an emergency MPC meeting?
That would be a very difficult prediction to make. But again, I want to work with the data. What is the market working with? I mean, the at most is about $200 per barrel. Yeah. That is the price of crude. And the shocks in terms of the supply chain issues. If you engage industries and businesses, they tell us that they have still some stocks in, and that could take them for about a month or 2 months. So I don't expect an emergency MPC meeting because, again, that is why they did more of a cautionary cut. I think that if they are working with up to 200, price of crude oil, all that has been factored in what they did today, I think that things could get worse, but I don't see crude oil prices going beyond $200 a barrel. Again, in terms of the impact on the market, if industries still have, the NPA tells us they have about 7 weeks of stocks right now. So things will get bad, but I think that the impact will not be that bad for us, because now we've conditioned ourselves.
Yeah, under 10 seconds, do you see an emergency MPC meeting?
Well, I don't think so, because listen to the governor. He mentioned that even though the Dubai and India airspaces are quite shaky, the forex is still flowing, but it has reduced. So on the forex side, we're in a bit comfortable situation. Again, we heard from the central governor, the BOG governor, that the central government is willing to step in and support consumers. So with these two main factors, one, we have our forex in check, the central government willing to take some fiscal side, reduce taxes also. It means that the central government is in a rash position to come to the markets and do anything drastic.
Winston?
I think the government will be a bit reluctant, considering the fact that they wouldn't like to repeat the narrative of Russian-Ukraine war in this current conversation, because you don't forget, we are coming out of the IMF in August, and the fiscal prudence and discipline is needed highly this time around. So there will be stringent monitoring of how the government is going to act, ensuring that there is no overspending, and sticking to the budget. Fiscal discipline is quite important. Let's see how the media budget will come, and the outlook will be quite positive going forward.
Well, this has been our special coverage of that MPC meeting. The Bank of Ghana has made a decision to cut the rate by 1.5 percentage point from 15.5 to 14. But the governor made an important point that they are still studying the Middle East crisis and asking a very important question, whether this crisis will be transitory or persistent. We simply do not know. But the Bank of Ghana very confident in the gains we've chalked so far, cut the policy rate by 150 basis points. That is a bold decision, and this has been our special coverage of the NPC meeting. I did this with Winston Taki, Caleb Ziblim, and fortunately for us, we were joined by George Wiafe. Thank you so much for joining us. So stay with us and continue enjoying the rest of our programs.